Morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. This morning's learning is sponsored by Debbie and Max Rudman to commemorate the Shloshim of Mrs. Sarah Braun, Zichron Lebracha. Thank you. Thank you very much. The Rudmans, very kind. Okay. We will begin with chapter 21, verse 22. Chapter 21, verse 22. It says in the pasuk, when a person is guilty of a sin which warrants death, in other words, someone commits a sin that the Beis Din decides they should be killed for, and the person is killed, v'saliso so'alates, you should hang the person on a tree. Verse 23, from a tree. Lo saliniv lo so'alates, even though you should hang the person, don't leave the person's body hanging overnight. Ki kavor tikberenu bayomahu, you should bury the deceased individual on that day. You shouldn't wait until the next day to bury the person. Now, here's the interesting phrase. Ki kilalas elokim talui. Literally translated, because the curse of God is hung. It's a little bit difficult to understand what those words mean. Velo sitameas ad masacha, do not defile your land. Asher Hashem lokecha nosein l'chon nachala. Do not defile the land of Israel, which God gives you as an inheritance. But what does that phrase mean? The curse of God is hung. Just what does it mean? Rashi on pasuk Chav Gimel, Ki kilas elokim talui, zilzulo shel melachu. To leave this body hanging overnight is a degradation of God. She'adam asui b'dmus yukno. A man is made in the likeness of God. V'Yisrael hein banav. We are the children of God, Klal Yisrael. We have a special connection to God. Mashal l'shnei achim te'umim shayudomim zeh lozeh. Echad nasa melech v'yechad nispas l'stayos v'nitles. So now the Medrash says a mashal. Imagine two twins that look remarkably like each other. One of them becomes a king, and one of them becomes a mafia criminal. Kolaroa, so and the criminal gets hung. Kolaroa, so Omer Hamelach Talui. So anyone who passes by says, "My gosh, the king of the country is hanging there from the tree." So that's the idea, that it's a degradation of the honor of God, because every human being, particularly a Jew, evokes memories of God. And so if a human being is hanging there in that way, it's a degradation to God's honor. So it is appropriate to hang the person, but don't leave him that way overnight. That's how Rashi explains it. Interesting sforno over here. Ki kilas elokim talui, hine kol etzem nivdal mechomer yikare Elohim. Says the Sforno, the word Elohim is not a reference to God in this pasuk. This is actually a concept the Sforno says throughout the Chumash. He says anything that's abstract, that's totally separate, totally devoid of physicality, is called Elohim. Umizeh min hu etzem hanefesh hasichlis ba'adam hanikres selam Elohim. That, says the Sforno, is what it means when we say man is created b'tselem Elohim. We would normally say man is created b'tselem Elohim because we mean it's a likeness of God. The Sforno says that's not what it means. What it means is that man is created with the ability to be eternal. Not that our bodies have the ability to be eternal, but these souls that we have are able to exist beyond the physicality. V'alzeh derech amra balas ov l'shoel Elohim Ra'isi Olim. There's a famous story that Shaul goes to some woman who's able to communicate with other worlds, and she says, "I see Elohim rising," in the plural, by the way. What does that mean? Again, it means I see like spirits. That's what it means. Ubiyos shabizoyin anas elameis acher misa hu bizoyin lenefesh hasichlis asheri etzem nivdal hanishar acher misa saguf. Amar shi killas Elohim. So the Sforno says, person's dead. The person's body is no longer, I mean, the body is physically there, but the person's not in their body anymore. So now the person is just their soul, just an Elohim, an abstract being beyond physicality. So now this person has gone on to a much better thing. This person has a much better essence now. And to keep the body hanging from the tree is a degradation of that very holy soul that now has been unshackled from the body. That's what the Sforno says. Very interesting pshat. Okay, fine. Let's go on now to chapter 22, verse 6. Very famous mitzvah here in the Torah, though there's some backdrop that's a little bit confusing that hopefully we'll get greater clarity on today. Chapter 22, verse 6. Ki karei kan sipor lefanecha, when you find before you a bird's nest, baderech, whether it be on the path, or if you find it before you on the path, b'chol eitz, in any tree, o al haaretz, or on the earth, on the land, efrochim o veitzim, chicks or eggs, and the mother is covering over the chicks or the eggs. Do not take the mother over the children, meaning verse 7, if you're going to take the chicks or the eggs, first send away the mother, and then, and only then, once you've sent away the mother, may you take the children, so that will be good for you. You will have lengthy days. Let's see the Ramban on Pasuk Vav. Ki karei kan sipor lefonecha. Gamzu mitzvah muvueres minoso v'espino lo sishchatu b'yom echad. Says the Ramban, this mitzvah in a way is an echo of a commandment earlier in the Torah. There's a commandment that one is not to slaughter a parent and child animals the same day. In other words, if I happen to own a cow and a child of the cow, and I want to slaughter both of those, I'm not allowed to slaughter them on the same day. And so says the Ramban, this idea of sending away the mother before taking the young is of a similar nature. It's just a total lack of compassion. You're in the case of the mother and the chicks, you're being cruel to the mother. And in the case of killing the parent and the child, or the animals, you're just eradicating the whole line, just in one fell swoop. It's a lack of compassion. Or it's something else. It's that God doesn't want us to act towards destroying that species, even though, of course, we're allowed to slaughter a given animal. Of course, we're allowed to slaughter a given animal, but the idea of slaughtering parent and child on the same day, it's going overboard. If a person kills the mother and children on the same day, or if he takes the children while in the presence of the presence of the mother, it's as if you're wiping out the species. These are the ideas the Ramban talks about. A lack of compassion, or because you're wiping out the species. The Kosovo Arab, the Rambam writes, Kitam Shluach Hakain, Vitam Vosovias Benolos Chishchatu Biyom Echad, the Lahazir Shlo Yishrot Habein Be'ene Ha'ain, Kishlo Behemos Daga Gedola Bozeh. The Rambam says that the real reason you're not allowed to slaughter the parent and child on the same day is because it will cause tremendous anguish to the parent. Vein Hefresh, Bein Dagas Adam, we can certainly, lo aleinu, appreciate the distress of a human being on seeing the death of one's child. Says the Rambam, animals have similar distress. The compassion that a parent has for a child is not based on how many books the parent can read. It's not based on how many languages the parent can speak. It's a natural emotion. It's found in people, it's found in animals. So therefore, says the Ramban, based on the Rambam, actually the real core of the prohibition of slaughtering parent and the child on the same day actually are, don't slaughter the child and then the parent. In other words, why should the parent see this happening? But theoretically speaking, the other way around, wouldn't it be as big a deal? But the point is, the Torah doesn't want you to go either way. So the Torah says the whole thing don't do it in either order. The Yoser Nachom, Bavur Shalonis Achzer. But the idea is, the Ramban says what seems to be really the idea is we shouldn't be people of cruelty. V'yomar harav, v'al toshav alai mimamar chachamim omer al kansipor yagiu rachamecha. This Gemara in Brachos, it's a very famous Gemara in Brachos, that we criticize a person who says, God, your compassion should be for the bird's nest. And presumably the idea is it's not for us to decide what the mitzvah of sending the mother bird away is. So that Gemara is critical of saying in Tefillah, God, your compassion should go on the mother from the bird's nest. Really? That's what the Rambam just said. The Rambam just said the whole idea is compassion. So how do we reconcile the Rambam with this Gemara? Kizu achas mishtei svaros, because actually there's two opinions in the Gemara. Svaras mishiyira ki ein tam l'mitzvah selachefat sabore. There's one opinion that says we should never get engaged in what the reasoning for a mitzvah is. Person asks, why do we do a certain mitzvah? You know what the answer is according to this opinion? The answer is because God said so. That's why we do this mitzvah. So that opinion is the same party that says, the person says in their davening, oh God, your mercy should come upon the mother bird. That's not the way we look at mitzvahs. That's that opinion. But we don't take that tack. We approach it like the second opinion, that we believes in mitzvahs having reasoning. V'huksha love od mashamatz b'rishis rab v'chima ichbas lo lakadosh baruch hu bein shochim min hatzav l'shochim min ha'oref v'lo nitnu ha'mitzvos el tzarif b'misabrio shenemar kol imras elokim elokatz rufa. It's a similar question. There's a medrash that says, does God really care how you kill an animal? Shechita, the reason why God cares how you kill an animal is because God's giving us instructions to follow. And every time we follow God's instructions, it's another mitzvah. That's not the only approach. You could theoretically argue that the reason why God wants us to shecht an animal is because it's a merciful way to kill the animal. But there is this other approach. So the Rambam would say that the Gemara that says, don't say that the Shiluach HaKen is all about mercy, is like the opinion that says we don't delve into the reasoning of mitzvahs. But of course, we have a view other than that. This idea that the Rambam talks about reasonings of mitzvahs is very clear. Each mitzvah has a reason and a purpose and something by which we can enhance ourselves. Of course, God rewards us for fulfilling the mitzvahs, and that's great, and that's wonderful, and it's very important for us to fulfill the mitzvahs, whether or not we understand them. But there's a great thing to gain from understanding of the mitzvahs. Okay, we're going to need to talk about this more next time, God willing. But just to sum up what we spoke about today, we spoke about Rashi and the Sforno regarding the statement that this phrase sounds like it's saying that the punished individual hanging from the tree, it's the curse of God hanging from the tree. We had two pshatim in what that really means, and we'll go on with the Ramban, God willing, but we began discussing the Ramban regarding the question: do we attribute a reason of mercy to the mitzvah of sending away the mother bird, or do we just say it's a mitzvah? We don't ask any more questions. Hold here.